What's up, guys? I'm EJ. I'm joined by Kendall. Thank you all for checking out this edition of the Uncommitted podcast. We really got a big show for you guys. We had some breaking news today. We're recording this on a Wednesday. Emoni Bates announcing he is committed to the Memphis Tigers. He is
It
enrolled
doesn't even sound real,
at the
EJ.
school, Kendall. And Kendall, not only is he getting
I can't even
committed,
hide my excitement.
he's not only is he committed, he's enrolled, meaning that he's going to be part of the Memphis Tigers for this upcoming season. He joins Jalen Duren, another top 3 player, both guys previously from the 2022 class, now joining the 2021 class to play college basketball this season for Penny Hardaway. A massive coup for the Memphis Tigers. That's going to be a lot of the focus of today's podcast. We'll talk about the signings. We'll talk about what that means for Memphis's season and then how they stack with the rest of these teams. Then we're going to talk about that 2022 class. Now that 2 heavyweights have kind of been taken out of that class, where does the rest of the field kind of stack up? So we'll be talking about a lot. This should be a great podcast. And Kendall, I know you must have been just ecstatic as a Memphis fan on this podcast to get the news that Bates was going to be joining Duren to really form a true NBA Jam like 2-man punch in college basketball.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I just mentioned to you before we jumped on that the last video we did, the last Uncommitted podcast episode that we did, was actually talking about Chet Holmgren, your guy Chet Holmgren, committing to Gonzaga.
Yeah.
And how how exciting that was to be for a Gonzaga fan. And the other topic we talked about during that episode was the rumblings or the word that Jalen Duren may have passed Emoni Bates and how he felt about that, and that whole discussion. And that was months ago, obviously. And never would I have thought at the time that the next Uncommitted podcast we would be talking about Emoni Bates and Jalen Duren reclassed to the 2021 class, and that they're both going to Memphis. I mean, the way that this thing came together in a matter of months, pretty much over the Peach Jam, pretty much over the Nike EYBL summer, which wasn't much. It was basically 1 or 2 events.
Yeah.
Credit to Nike for condensing the AAU tournament, the AAU season as much as possible. But the way this came together, I know you remember, EJ. I had texted you a couple times, when Penny offered Emoni Bates, saying like, I don't know, I guess Penny's taking a shot here. Bates had decommitted from Michigan State, which seemed, I don't think anybody was like shocked.
Yeah,
we talked about it.
I told you it was likely when he
yeah,
in his announcement he said, I don't know what's gonna happen in the future. I'm like, this whole announcement is about what's happening in the future.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I mean, that wasn't a shocker when that happened, but then when Penny offered him, it was like, I don't know, I guess you're just taking a shot in the dark.
Yeah.
And we had already been in there with Duren, but it wasn't, necessarily a reclassification thing. But when that smoke started to come up, I remember you told me, you were like, man, hopefully Penny can get one of these guys. Hopefully he can land one of these guys, because he's been going after them since day one. So yeah, it's terrific as a Memphis fan. This is the best day easily since Wiseman committed, which has been not a whole lot of great days since then.
Yeah.
Because of what the NCAA did to us that year. And then before that, I mean, again, Penny getting the job, and I guess Memphis, winning the going to the Final Four.
Yeah, I would say, yeah, right.
Cal carrying Derrick Rose.
That's a long time.
That's a long time before Memphis has been this excited. So, we'll talk more about what that means for this team. But what's your initial reaction?
Yeah, I mean, to me, like you said, I think the timeline is fascinating because we talk about how these two kind of squared up against each other in the in one of these AU tournaments over the summer. We talked about it on this.
Yeah, and Duren had outplayed Bates.
Yes.
And so that was the conversation. Was, well, I guess Duren had passed Bates. And remember, after that, about a week later, I remember texting you saying, Emoni Bates just joined Jalen Duren's AAU
Right.
team. So I don't,
Exactly.
he really does have the Kevin Durant gene in him on some level, because that was the craziest thing in AAU that I ever seen.
Yeah.
But I guess that was the seed that was planted for this thing to even happen, was Bates playing on Jalen Duren's AAU team final.
Yeah, and then once that happened, then you start to hear the underground rumblings of, hey, man, these guys might end up being a package deal for whatever
Yeah.
happens in the future, especially when, Bates had, now that Bates had uncommitted, no pun intended, this podcast uncommitted. But, I mean, to me, I got to say, I mean, this is one of the biggest recruiting coups I've ever seen. This to me is a very reminiscent of Coach K locking up R.J. Barrett, Zion Williamson, and why can't I say Cam Reddish, of course.
Yeah.
That class. I mean, the Zion commitment just coming out of nowhere is still one of the most shocking one of the most shocking commitments I've ever seen in college basketball, to form that just crazy three-headed monster. This to me is it rivals that. I mean, you're talking about Emoni Bates, who for a lot of folks maybe the best high school player since LeBron James. I know that people have cooled on him a bit because of what some have considered a lackluster season and an unimpressive AAU run. I kind of feel like a lot of this hysteria around his game, in terms of like people being concerned, is really overblown. I mean, he's 17 years old. He's not always going to play the best. He's coming out of a pandemic where they didn't have real team practices and things like that. And I do understand that this is an important part of his career, and very little, any disturbances can stunt a guy's growth. But he is very young, so this idea that if you really thought he was that great, I think you got to give him a lot of rope in terms of what you may see. And the guy was still sensational. Let's keep it 100. It's not like the guy, he was, all of a sudden he was, averaging 5 points a game and was shooting 20. He was still averaging 20, 25 points, still doing incredible things. Maybe the leap that people expected to see this season we didn't see. But I'll be honest, I feel like a lot of guys that I've watched this year in terms of that class, I didn't see the biggest leap from year to year. So I think that he's in some ways getting more penalized because of his talent. But we know the talent is through the roof in terms of a guy his size, with his handle, his shooting ability.
And I don't want to, I don't want to be the guy that's like, because people compare him to LeBron, don't ever compare anybody to LeBron. He was never going to be that, blah, blah, blah. Because those were legitimate conversations, I mean, given the talent level, the projection at the time, I think where people were going overboard, and I said this at the time, was when we started to talk about when he was a sophomore winning Gatorade National Player of the Year over Cade Cunningham, and he's the best player in high school basketball. Like, that was just ridiculous, given, again, how good someone like Cade Cunningham, like Jalen Green. I just couldn't say that a 15-year-old, who hadn't been those types of wars and at the high school level, was going to be better than those guys. So at that time, and so when people started to see that, as he got older, he may not have been as advanced as some of those other guys at the same stage, that's what hurt him. But again, when you're talking long-term, upside, you're talking, again, also tangible, like, skill set. His shot making ability is up there with the best players you'll ever see at the high school level. Right. Not the most efficient, but he plays on a AAU team with his name on it. So, I don't expect. I don't expect the efficiency to be there.
Yeah, he's gonna get them shots up. There's no question.
Yeah, he's gonna get the shots up. He doesn't have a whole lot of help around him. When he played with Team Final, he was. I mean, that's the best he played. Really all year was that stint he played with Jalen Duren. He's on a stacked team, but it allowed him to play real basketball. He wasn't seeing double teams all the time. He was getting open shots. He was being able to play the point guard rather than having to, take every shot for the team and make plays for other guys. He could play off the ball, he could play on the ball. And that's going to be more like what we'll see with him from Memphis. But it's the reclassification part of this is interesting before we get to the Memphis part, because, that class of 2021, we talked about it for quite a bit on this podcast. Banchero, Holmgren. I know EJ probably thinks it's Holmgren, Banchero, Jaden Hardy, Pat Baldwin's the guy we talked about, and now you take the top two guys from the junior class and put them in the senior class. I've never seen this before. I don't know if this has ever happened.
Yeah.
What do you make of that?
I mean, it's certainly is again, it's kind of unprecedented. I mean, we've seen maybe one guy here and there, like a Marvin Bagley, join a class, and he becomes the top guy.
Yeah, Anthony Edwards, Barrett, and those guys.
Yeah,
guys have classed.
Yeah, but it's rare you see two of almost the unquestioned top two guys, or at least the most two guys people talk about the most this late in the game, go to the same school. It really kind of throws a monkey wrench into everything. I mean, to me, I think they're among the top guys. I've always felt like Banchero and Chet were very close. And then, to me, these two guys leapfrog pretty much everyone else in that class to me. This now becomes a big four as opposed to a big two. Is no disrespect to any of the other kids who are fantastic players that right below Chet and Banchero, but I think we kind of have seen enough to be like, there's two top guys, and then there are other guys who are really good players who may break out and have great freshman seasons, may rise up and be a top player, but they haven't necessarily shown that yet. These guys, I think, come in, they leapfrog those guys. I mean, Duren is just a monster. I mean, I told you, to me, he looks like Dwight Howard. Dwight Howard, like, in his fourth year in the league. I'm not even talking about Dwight Howard as a rookie. Like, I mean, you don't see high school kids built like Jalen Duren, and not just the physical stature, but the coordination and the foot speed. I mean, this guy was guarding Emoni Bates in a game and guarding him well. I mean, the guy's a special physical specimen. They just don't make people like that. And he easily becomes one of the top guys in this class. He's not as polished as the other three guys if you include Banchero and Chet, but the physical profile is too elite to not put him up there. So it really shakes up the class a great deal. I mean, these guys come in and really easily become two of the top guys in the class.
And for Duren, it shakes up the NBA draft. I mean, obviously we're NBA draft guys, and now we're talking about a guy in Jalen Duren that, I don't think he'll be the number one pick just because of the way he plays and, the way the game is going, where the game is going. Skill is at such a premium right now. Not to say that he has no skill, but just, you mentioned the skill level of guys like Holmgren and Banchero, Jaden Hardy and Pat Baldwin. Not to say he won't go ahead of Pat Baldwin. He may not go. He won't go ahead of Jaden Hardy, but I find it hard to believe he'll be the number one guy, but now he's going to be a top 5 pick. I'd be surprised if he wasn't a top 5 or 10 pick in this draft. And the other interesting thing about this, which we talked about it when, I don't know when we talked about it in a previous Emoni Bates story in a previous episode of the Uncommitted, about the idea that he may reclassify. Because this didn't, I guess, come out of thin air, but when we talked about it, it was like, doing the math, he can't enter the draft next year. So the idea that he would reclassify would mean he would have to do 2 years at the time at Michigan State. Right. And now he's going to go to Memphis. But this is also what makes this the most unprecedented reclassification we have ever seen in college basketball. Because every time a player has reclassified at this level, you may have a guy like Andre Dawkins that they reclassified and did his high school year at Duke, and Kyra Lewis did 2 years at Alabama. He was a year younger. But like at this level of like a surefire one and done guy, never happened where a guy did 2 years of college basketball.
Yeah, a guy who, if they left, would be a top pick easily. Yeah. Like if they left their freshman year, who is now withheld from going because he hasn't reached the age to get there. He's only 17 right now. He doesn't turn 18 until January. And that's the thing, is that most of the guys we've seen reclassify, they're technically a lot of times going up to the age that they really should be at.
Yeah, like Jalen Duren, he's just starting his NBA clock early. He's saying, why would I do next year high school basketball? And then I can't go to the draft because I'm still playing high school basketball. When I could go to college now, I can graduate and go to the NBA. That wouldn't make any sense for him to do 2 years of free basketball.
Right.
But for Emoni Bates, at the time, the conversation was, why would you play 2 years of college basketball for free? Like, like James Wiseman had that opportunity when Penny Hardaway got the job to follow Penny, immediately and go to Memphis and reclassify. But he was like, nah, I'm gonna do my senior year. I'm not wasting my time. And we know that would have been even worse for Wiseman because he probably would have been eligible, and then he would have had to do 2 years of no basketball. But for Emoni Bates, the difference now from everyone else that's ever had this decision is the NIL.
Right.
There's now this idea that you can make money playing college basketball, and not only can you make money, but you can make more money playing college basketball than you can playing high school or playing in the G League potentially. That is what's the difference for someone like Emoni Bates, and it's fascinating that we saw this not only with him, but also in college football with Quinn Ewers, who was the top high school football player in the country, heading into this senior season, deciding 2 weeks ago, basically, around the same time as Emoni Bates. Actually, no, I'm going straight to Ohio State because I can't profit off my NIL in the state of Texas. Yeah. So I'm going to Ohio State, and so that's the best player in high school football and the best player in high school basketball saying we're skipping our senior season to go straight to the college game.
And
it's a different era.
I don't think we've been a little bit on hiatus on the show. We didn't really talk much about NIL. I think when it all came, that whole thing shook out. But I mean, we have Paolo Banchero who just signed with CAA. I mean, it's a crazy landscape. I mean, this is crazy. I mean, just again, it's kind of hard for me. It's hard to even fathom that kind of situation. But he's signed with CAA, arguably the top agency.
And look, we know
I think it's definitely a top agency, period, in terms of sports and entertainment. But for sports, arguably the top sports agency, and they're going to be doing all his NIL deals. And
CAA's been nice to do. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, but Zion and Luke Kennard. I don't think it's a shock that Paolo ends up with CAA, but that's an all fair conversation.
Yeah, I mean, so this is a as Kendall said, a very unprecedented time, and I think Emoni Bates will have an interesting decision after this year at Memphis. We know he will play this year. Does he decide, hey, I'm making so much bread at Memphis, why would I even consider going to the G League and taking that check? When I think we all agree, it seems to me still you're still way more profitable playing college basketball than you are playing in the G League.
We talked about it, man, with Zion. That year that Zion did, this is what Emoni Bates is doing. He's not going to be as electric of a player as Zion, and that's no slight at Bates. It's not going to be it. No one has ever been as electric as Zion.
Zion's an alien
on the college game. Not anyone in the one and done era. So there's no slight on Bates. We're just not going to be Zion.
Yeah.
But he's going to be close to that. This is as close you're going to get for a guy that's not Zion. But so he's going to have the ability to make that money that and have that star power on the college game and be able to turn it into actual revenue for himself in ways that Zion couldn't and Trae Young couldn't and Kevin Durant couldn't. But then also he's going to come back for a sophomore season potentially and be the face of college basketball without a shadow of a doubt. I can't call him the face of college basketball this season because there's other guys. Chet Holmgren's going to be a great guy, a great player to follow. And
there are guys who are playing, like Johnny Juzang. There are guys who are coming back, who are actually college basketball players. Exactly.
But if Bates is as good as we think, and he's averaging, 18 points as a freshman, and he comes back for his sophomore season, he's undoubtedly the face of college basketball. So, again, the money that he makes in that space, it'll be hard for him to turn that down.
Before we get to how Memphis looks as a team, we talk about the unprecedented nature of Bates's turn. I want to ask you, how well do you think he's going to play? I mean, this is a kid, again, a 17-year-old kid who should be playing high school ball. He'll be, I guess, 18 by the time the second half of the season starts. But
he's going to be younger than the average.
This will be one of the youngest college basketball players we've ever seen playing college basketball.
Yeah.
What do you expect from him?
So the word that we've gotten, if you look at Memphis's roster, I would say the one hole has been at the point guard spot. No lack to no slack to Alex Lomax. Gritty point guard, no doubt.
Welcome
But
back.
you're talking about winning. You're talking about winning a national championship, which you're getting these two kind of guys. You need
Yeah.
high level point guard play. Um, and the word coming out of this commitment, and even Memphis fans reading the tea leaves going into it potentially was that he's gonna play point for this
Mm-hmm.
Memphis team. Jonathan Givony said that was part of the pitch. Jeff Goodman has said that is part of the pitch to get Emoni Bates to Memphis was Penny Hardaway being the big guard that he is, one of the
Yeah.
all time best big guards in basketball history, was able to get and sell Emoni Bates on molding him to play that spot. I think that is risky
Mm-hmm.
for his age. Like you mentioned, being a younger player, college basketball is not an easy. It's not an easy game, and
No.
we always talk about it, EJ. We could talk about Memphis playing in a smaller conference, and they're not in the ACC, and the non-conference schedule. But we've talked about it for years that these mid-major schools, they may not have 7-footers built like Jalen Duren, but they all have guards that can go. They all
Yeah,
have
of
guards that are
course.
going to compete, that are
Right.
going to pick up full court. They're going to see
Yeah.
Emoni Bates, and they're going to lick their chops saying, this kid's 17 years old, has never played this kind of pressure,
Yeah.
and that's going to be tough. And so, look, the good thing is they have Alex Lomax on the roster, so it's not like he's going to be, thrown into the fire necessarily, but I do think the point guard experiment is going to be a little bit of a work in progress for him. But the one thing I'll say, and I'll ask if you agree, we talked about how he's not going to be eligible for the draft next season. That 2023 draft features a guy named Victor Wembanyama, who obviously, EJ, we watched in the FIBA U19 World Cup be clearly the best prospect in the world right now. And it's tough for Emoni Bates, a guy who's been the next LeBron or the next Durant since he was 13, 14, to know that it's unlikely you're going to be the number one pick in the draft because we have this kid from France who's no doubt going to be number one, barring injury. If Emoni Bates is a 6'9" point guard who can pull up from 30 and can play make, is that a conversation? Does that become because right now there is no conversation.
Yeah.
As much as I like Emoni Bates, there's no conversation. If you watched Wembanyama, you would know there's no conversation.
Yeah.
But if Bates we talk about the way the NBA is played nowadays.
Yeah.
That becomes a conversation.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I think in some ways, I think that probably was the pitch to Penny Hardaway as well. Not just you play point guard and you're
it's gonna be fun to play.
You'll be fun. You'll be a better player. And it's not. I think a lot of it will be you want to maximize your draft potential and your draft ceiling. Point guard's gonna be where it's at. Like we all know, you could score the ball at a super high level. We just saw a guy in Jalen Green who scores the ball as good as any young shooting guard we've seen in years, and he couldn't go number one.
Who was the best? One of the best high school basketball scorers I ever saw?
Yeah.
Jason Tatum.
Right.
Jason Tatum was not talked about going number one by anybody. And he ended up being arguably the best player in that draft.
And those guys end up being usually excellent. But it's just it's just this idea that unless that guy is like just super, 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 super elite, sometimes those guys get overlooked. It's crazy as it sounds. It's crazy.
Like drafted a quarterback now.
Yeah, it's crazy to think that someone like Jason Tatum or Jalen Green are being underrated, but in some ways that happens. So
that used to be the archetype for a superstar. The Jordan, the Kobe, the LeBron, and now it's the LeBron in the sense that you're the big playmaker.
And so much of it is because the lead guard position the rules are tilted so much to them. So much of these offenses are tilted so much to them that a guy on the wing is nice, but if you can get that guy could be your point guard, it just adds the value differently. It's like James Harden when he was playing on the wing in Houston was a lot different than when Mike D'Antoni came in there and said you're the point guard, and we saw him win MVPs. It was immediately a different. We looked at him totally differently after that happened. So that was like the greatest example of like why if I'm Penny Hardaway and I'm pitching this kid to come to Memphis, I'm saying I can make you a big point guard. Why this could change life for you, and I do to answer the question, I actually do think it would be a conversation if Bates comes out and is just killing it at the point. It's kind of, in some ways, it's a little bit, I don't want to say unfathomable, because again, he's a super young player and guys improve and guys grow. He's just such a natural scorer. Part of me is just like, why even wasting time with him at the point? It's almost like when you got like a closer who comes in and he's throwing 100. He's got this sick stuff, and people are like, yeah, but we actually think he could be a starting pitcher, and we're gonna start starting him. And it's like, man, I mean, he could be a great starting pitcher, but the guy throws 105. Like, just let him go and throw 105. That's how I feel about Bates. Like, I don't know if I'd be clamoring to change him into some point guard. Again, if we really keep comparing him to Kevin Durant's pretty darn good. Last I checked, so that's my feeling on it. But I do feel like, yes, if he becomes a guy who also can just kill you getting downhill and initiating your offense, then as special as threat. Yeah, then as special as Wembanyama is, you have to then consider, okay, well, now this guy is also a unicorn, and then maybe it gets flipped on Wembanyama, which, okay, as nice as he is, he's a center. Like, does that then get into the conversation? Right now, he's
positional value then becomes the conversation.
Right. He's 7'3" and he can shoot threes and stuff, so that's why a lot of that stuff gets thrown away a little bit. But again, that changes if now Bates becomes the unicorn. It's like, okay, well, how special is Wembanyama?
And you agree that as of right now, there is no conversation.
I agree. I don't think there's a conversation. I think Bates,
it's hard.
Bates is number 2 to me.
Yeah, and so that'll be. And look, he's got 2 years to play the position. So he may look like a deer in headlights now, but if he comes back for a sophomore season, he may be a much better player. Exactly. That'll be when he comes out, and that just the scouting experience of having a guy on that level playing college basketball for 2 years, we've never seen it before.
Yeah, I mean, in some ways, I feel like I'm not convinced he's going to stay 2 years. That's like my gut.
We talked about this at the time. Yeah.
Yeah, my gut tells me he will do the year and then he'll go somewhere else. I can't tell you where it will be, but something tells me that like he had a unique opportunity. Like the way I think this all shook out was, I think it was a point guard thing. And I think for whatever reason, him and Duren have some kind of connection. They like playing with each other. And I think he had a unique opportunity to play with Duren, but the only way he could do it was to do this thing. And I think he's fine doing it. I think he's going to keep his options open after this season. But because I think that he's going to be he's already a super scrutinized prospect. And he's going to become maybe the most scrutinized prospect we've ever seen in college basketball. Like maybe that sounds hyperbole, but when you think about that, like if he plays 2 years, like players of his stature don't normally play 2 years.
Yeah, the closest thing we had was Marcus Smart.
Right, and Marcus Smart he's not even in the same universe
not even in the same stratosphere
of talent as
he's a All-American.
Yeah, and that's you love Marcus Smart, the Celtic fan. Marcus Smart is
100%.
a really good player. There's no diss to him. Just talking about pure supernova talent. There's not a comparison there.
And look at what that did to Marcus Smart.
Right, exactly.
What happened to him his sophomore year.
Yeah, Smart went from being a guy who people assumed he'd be number 1 pick going to his sophomore year, and he had a really rough year. He played okay, but stuff on the court, he some of the things we thought he'd be better at, he didn't improve as much, and we were just picking apart his game left and right. It was a lot. So if that was a lot for Marcus Smart, I mean, what do you think Emoni Bates is going to go through? So it's gonna be a lot.
And we know Marcus Smart, and again, no slight on Bates, but we know Marcus Smart's a tough son of a gun, and that weighed on him. Yeah, it was a difficult load for him on the shoulder. It's gonna take a lot for someone like Emoni Bates to go through that for 2 years.
Actually, never mind. I mean, who knows? Maybe I'm speaking into existence. I actually would love to talk to Marcus Smart about Emoni Bates. I think he'd be the best person to talk to because he'd be the only person in recent memory that we could bring this up. There are some like football players where we have a guy who we thought was going to be a junior,
like Trevor Lawrence,
Matt Leinart, or someone like that. Or I was even thinking someone who got to their third year. And we all assumed they would be in the NFL, but they played another year. So, Andrew Luck or Matt Leinart, there are a couple of guys in there where you say, I like those guys for football we see more often. But this does not happen in basketball. So, Smart would actually probably be a great place to talk to about, like, what was that year like coming in when everyone's saying you're number 1 and you getting this crazy scrutiny that you did not have as your freshman when everyone loved your game. So, real quickly, what do you think in terms of Memphis' ceiling as a team? I mean, we talked about Bates and Duren signing on. You talked about some of their holes, but Gonzaga is still a beast. Still got a loaded roster. UCLA, they bring a ton of guys back. They have some recruits coming in. A lot of excitement in Westwood. There's a lot of excitement with Duke as well. That maybe Coach K's final last dance will be will involve some net cutting because they've got a great recruiting class coming in.
That's funny. The last uncommitted we did, Coach K was still the coach at Duke.
I know. I mean, yeah. sorry to the fans that have been wanting to hear all of our takes.
Well, yeah, what do you guys think about Coach K retiring? You should have listened to Sports Talk, man.
Yeah, we did talk about it on Sports Talk. Yes, and of course you'll probably see it on this lower third here. It's a great time to make sure check out our podcast on New Generation Podcast Network. We do Sports Talk every week, where stuff that doesn't get on Uncommitted will go on there, or we'll preview a conversation on there that comes on Uncommitted. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of excitement around a lot of other teams in college basketball. Memphis right now becomes the hot team, but are they the team? Are they the team to beat? And what is their ceiling now with these two guys on the roster?
So what's fascinating about this Memphis team, as opposed to like Gonzaga, who obviously at this point Gonzaga's a blue blood. I hate to say it. As a Memphis fan, who we used to have a pretty strong rivalry back in the day. But the modern college basketball game, we can't think about 1985, what basketball was in 1985. If that's the case, Georgetown's a blue blood and St. John's is a blue blood, but, Syracuse, Indiana, but, when is the last time any of those schools have done anything? Yeah. Like Gonzaga's a blue blood in the modern college basketball.
It's almost like I was watching The Shop the other day. It's almost like I don't necessarily I got a lot of respect for Jamal Hill and I love hip hop. I don't necessarily agree with this. This idea, but when she's talking about like hip hop and like how your top 5 has to change because we get new stuff all the time and guys get better or women get better, so you can't just have Biggie and Pac in top 5 forever. As a hip hop purist, as you guys can see back, I mean, Biggie and Pac could be in my top 5 forever, but nonetheless, I get the premise, and to me, it definitely applies to like what we think of college basketball and the college landscape of sports. Like, you can't run around saying Indiana's a blue blood. They haven't. I mean, when was the last time we went to that second? Football. I don't remember when the last time we went to that second weekend in the NCAA tournament. I mean, all we talk about is Indiana going to be back? Like, they can't be there if they were trying to talk about them getting back to something. So I totally agree with that. And Gonzaga right now, despite not having a championship, I mean, the amount of wins, the teams they put together year in and year out, there's no doubt they're one of the top programs in the country right now.
But because they're a blue blood, they schedule like a blue blood. They schedule like a team that expects to be, in the Final Four, that expects to compete for national championships. And as reflected by that, Gonzaga this year, EJ, they have games against they start the season against Texas. They also have a game the week after against UCLA. 3 days later, they play Duke. The next week, they play Alabama, another top 10 team.
Another team to look at this year.
2 weeks later, they played Texas Tech on national TV.
Right.
So that's the Gonzaga non-conference schedule. That's a blue blood schedule. That's a team trying to win.
First of all, I don't want anyone to say Gonzaga doesn't play people. Somehow that narrative still starts, and I'm like, did you watch the first half of the season?
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, that's the thing. No,
right. They don't.
Outside of the people like us, nobody watches it. They watch college football. Right. And so when they start watching, it's like,
Gonzaga's playing Loyola Marymount again. I'm like, they played Duke last month.
yeah, exactly. Memphis' non-conference schedule includes St. Louis, Western Kentucky. They played in the NIT against Virginia Tech, and then Iowa State and Xavier, Ole Miss. They also play Alabama and Tennessee. So mostly SEC schools, but only Alabama and Tennessee, in Nashville, not neutral site game, are top 25 opponents on the schedule. So it's just, they're gonna run through the schedule. The American, is gonna be a cakewalk. Those games against Houston will be legit.
Yeah,
just because we know
Calvin Sampson's bringing dogs. It don't matter. I don't even know who on their roster, but I know they dogs.
I can't tell you. I know Quentin Grimes isn't going to be there. I know DeJon Jarreau's not going to be there.
But they got dogs in that roster.
Yeah, they're still going to have guys that are going to compete.
Yeah.
So that's not going to be an easy game. But the rest of the American, Wichita should be pretty decent.
They should be pretty good.
Like, the Cincinnati. I mean, Cincinnati's bringing in their third coach in 4 years.
Yeah.
And the rest of the conference is basically Conference USA. So this is a very unique kind of experiment. We didn't really get to see it. I mean, Precious Achiuwa was like American Conference Player of the Year, and Precious Achiuwa was a very good player, but he wasn't Jalen Duren or Emoni Bates.
Right.
I don't think.
Yeah.
So what are these guys going to do in the American? So I don't expect them to lose more than 2 games this season, 2 or 3 games this season.
Wow.
Maybe they have more rough stretches than I expect. But what people forget is that this Memphis team, they lost Boogie Ellis and Musa Cisse to transfer. That's a hell of a trade to be trading Boogie Ellis for, no disrespect to those guys.
Yeah.
Him for Emoni Bates and Cisse for Duren.
You'll do that trade every day, of course.
Yeah, if you're Penny Hardaway, you'll take that trade. And then this is the same team that, pretty much outside of those guys, and DJ Jeffrey's also transferring. Most of these guys are back from a team that won the NIT.
Yeah.
And at the second half of the season was one of the best teams in the country, outside of a couple of losses to Houston. So,
right.
Close losses to Houston.
Yes.
So, yeah, I think this team. I would be surprised if this team doesn't. I think this is a second weekend team. If you're asking me, I think it's the second weekend. And once you get into the second weekend, now it becomes a crapshoot. It becomes matchups. It becomes, I know as a Memphis fan, it was a long time ago, but I remember the Tyreek Evans team being a shoo-in for the Final Four, and then you just run into Damari Carroll in Missouri. Sometimes matchups. And I know as a Gonzaga fan.
Oh yeah, we run into Texas Tech and the kid from who got traded from the Timberwolves.
Jarrett Culver.
Yeah, you're running Jarrett Culver, and the way those guys were playing, you Gonzaga again. You think you're a shooter for the Final Four. It's not meant to be sometimes. So yeah, I think that's a good way to look at it. I think a lot of times you're trying to get to that second weekend, because that's when you're kind of separating the pretenders from the contenders. Anybody who can't get out of the second weekend, those teams, they were never real threats to win a national championship, including teams that get upset. Like if you were number 2, 3 seed, and you're getting bounced in the second round or first round, you weren't no real championship contender. You had a great season, but you shouldn't be losing to the kind of teams that you'll be going up against in those early rounds. Second weekend is when you really separate the men from the boys, for lack of a better term. And I agree. I think Memphis 100% looks like a second weekend team. At that point, it's kind of again anything goes. We would have thought Zion and them guys were shooting for the Final Four, and they ran into some tough sons of a guns in Michigan State with Winston and
Langford
and Langford and all those guys. Tillman. That's what I was trying to think of. So it depends on what happens there, and they're very young. They're gonna not necessarily a young team, but their stars are young. So sometimes those guys, big game, one day they don't show up. It's tough to say. It's not like the NBA playoffs where the best teams usually stick around. Because you got to beat them 4 times.
Yeah. And look, we can talk about the recruiting class, and the recruiting class is great. We talked about Josh Minot at the Irishman Classic, looking really good. John Camden, the guy we talked about, when he committed, hell of a shooter. This team's, this is going to be a really deep team. The Lawson brothers, transferring, from Oregon. They have players on the roster, but Gonzaga has a hell of a recruiting class. Did we talk about the fact that Nolan Hickman,
Hickman's
ends up transferring to Gonzaga, or decommitting from Kentucky and going to Gonzaga?
Yeah, and Hickman, we talked about it during the Iverson Classic video. He was one of the more impressive guards in that game.
You loved him in that video.
Yeah,
and he's gonna be, I guess, backup point guard. He was out playing at, Jamal Crawford's league in Pro-Am in Seattle. Him and Chet.
Yeah, Salas brought up all the Gonzaga guys. And they were killing it.
And that's like, and again, he's gonna be the backup, I think.
Yeah.
They have Andrew Nimhard.
Yeah.
They've got again Hunter Salas, who may be a top 10 pick.
A lot of people think he's gonna be a point guard. I'm biased. I'm wearing a Gonzaga shirt. I still feel like Gonzaga is the team to beat. As we know now, that doesn't mean much. You're still trying to win a national championship.
Yeah.
But if we're saying who's the team to beat, who do we eye as a team going into that tournament as the team that's probably going to be number one or the team you kind of see most likely to go all the way through? I think the Zags are there, but I think UCLA is still going to be really good. I forgot who it was. I want to say it was maybe. I want to say maybe it was, I don't know. I don't think it was Rothstein, but one of them mentioned one of the key players in UCLA is going to be watched this year is Tiger Campbell, because we talk about that point guard play,
that veteran,
how steady you need that play to be when time you get to the tournament, and he was exceptional in this last play. And not so I know we talk about Drew Zhang's shot making ability, but he was so steady at the one. I don't know if any of these other teams that we're talking about.
That's what Memphis
maybe Gonzaga. I mean, Nembhard's really good with Gonzaga, but I think like that's one thing for UCLA that they have an advantage, that they have a guy who you feel very confident with the ball in his hands. He's not going to make mistakes. Been there before. And he just went through a crazy run, going up against a lot of other really good guards and really holding his own. So more than holding his own in some instances. So I with him, with Drew Zhang, with Jaquez, they got a squad. So I think Memphis is probably a notch below those teams. Yeah. But I think after that, I think you
like them and Duke is like I think Duke and Memphis is it's just how do you feel about the brands?
Right.
You like Duke's brand a little better, but Banchero and AJ Griffin, and Bates and Duren. If you flip it, most people would say that Duke is the better team, just because of the brand, because of the appeal. So obviously it's going to be a fascinating college basketball season.
That would, by the way, also be a hell of an NBA Jam matchup. We just got rid of everybody else on both rosters and said, "Oh, you guys play 2-on-2."
Yeah, 100%.
That's 100% we want to watch that game. But let's talk about the rest of the class of 2022, because again, by most accounts, Bates and Duren were the two top guys in their class. Those guys move on, so now you have a next crop of guys. Who do you look at as number one out of the guys that are left? Keontae George recently committed to Baylor. I've been really super impressed watching his game recently. Amari Bailey, star out of Sierra Canyon. His celebrity will rise now that more guys are out of the picture and he moves up. I see 247 Sports, I think, has him at number one right now. They're playing with other really good players. How do you see the rest of the class shaking out? And then who do you see as the number one guy right now?
Yeah, this is a hotly debated. This might be the most open situation, and not a surprise because the two top guys.
Two supernovas are gone. They were clearly the top two.
Yeah, exactly. And so, it really leaves a void. And I think, look, we'll see throughout the high school season which guy really takes that mantle, and throughout the All-Star games, hopefully we can have All-Star games. We just had the Slam Summer Classic, and Chris it was at Gaucho's gym, and Chris Livingston from Ohio just won MVP, and he's a guy I know Memphis is recruiting really hard,
very hard on him,
and he reminds me a lot of Jaylen Brown. He's in the conversation. Derek Lively is a 7-footer from Pennsylvania who played on the same AU team with Duren and Bates, and at one point some people thought he was the third best guy.
Yeah, I was watching. Remember when we were watching that game between Duren and Bates? I kept saying, "Who's this light skinned guy that can jump? This guy, he looked like a young." Like a young Jericho Sims,
Yeah, exactly.
I was very impressed. I was like, I don't know who this guy is. Like, who he played for? That guy's pretty good.
Yeah. So, a lot of people throw out Tyson Chandler. They throw out Willie Cauley-Stein as guys to compare him to. So, there's a lot of guys, and Shaden Sharp's a kid from Canada that really lit it up on the Nike circuit. So, I lean right now, Keontae George. He's got a game. Like sometimes you can watch guys similar to Jaden Hardy in the 21 class, where they got pro games, they've got NBA ready skill sets, And to me, that's what Keontae George has, the shot creation on the perimeter. He's not the most explosive. He's not, again, the biggest or the strongest or the fastest. He's a little undersized.
So you're saying he's not the EST of the 2022 class?
No, he's not the EST. But Baylor is going to be a perfect fit, in terms of, him being able to, we'll see what they look like next season. But obviously we know that, the ghosts of Davion Mitchell and Jared Butler will be, over the Baylor program with their absence next season. He's gonna be able to fill that void when he comes in next year. And he looks like a guy that I expect to average, 17, 18 points in college basketball. Like, I'm not saying he's gonna be Trae Young. He's not gonna be Sharif Cooper. He's averaging 10 assists. But when you're talking about filling it up, he fits that mold.
Yeah, I really have become really impressed with George's game. I know his commitment to Baylor was a little bit of a surprise to some people, but
Texas was in on him very early.
Yeah, and it felt Beard has had so much momentum. It felt like whoever he wanted, he was getting, especially from the state of Texas. So this was a big win for Drew. But yeah, George is just so smooth. He like you said, I like the words you use in terms of describing his game. When I watch him, he just seems to have a very mature game. Like seeing him just kind of dissect defenses in a way. Like, I'm always impressed with the guys. And look, all these guys are very athletic, more athletic than the guys are going up against, even a guy like George, who is athletic. But I'm impressed with the guys where I'm watching them. I feel like they're dominating these guys. It's not because of their athleticism. They're dominating them because his brain is so much farther advanced than everyone he's going against, and his skill set matches that. And that's, to me, what I see when I see George. He's thinking 3 steps ahead in terms of when he's making moves to the basket, beating. A lot of times, guys will talk about it's not about beating the first guy; it's about being the second and third guy, and that's what makes a great player. I see George routinely seem to figure out how to get past that guy, and again, not necessarily just by jumping over him. Amari Bailey is a great athlete. He reminds me a lot of R.J. Barrett. He's a little shorter, but I think he can grow an inch or two, and he may end up being very similar to R.J. Barrett. But similar to R.J. Barrett, and I think what hurt Barrett a little bit in terms of, like, by the time we got to, like, the season and people started seeing, okay, who's number one, who's number two, like, I think that he relies a lot on just being more physically mature than everyone he's up against. His like athleticism and dexterity is just ridiculous, And in some ways, RJ was the same way. He was just a lot stronger, a lot more athletic than the guys he was going up against. So it allowed him to just kind of just bully guys around and dominate. Doesn't mean the guy's not a great player. Amari Bailey is a great player.
Yeah.
But I think when it comes to, like, projecting guys for how they'll play in their freshman year and then how they'll be as NBA guys, to me, George, is number one. Bailey's probably two. I like Livingston. We didn't mention Derek Whitehead from Brick City. Playing at Mount Vernon. Another really good athlete, another physically mature player. He's going to Duke University. We got Deion Johnson as well.
His brother plays linebacker for the Vegas Raiders.
Yeah, that's all you need to know about. That's all you need to know about Whitehead's game. In terms of, like, the physicality he plays with. But again, another very physically mature kid. This class, we had Duren in the class, so I should have told you everything. But this class has, to me, a lot of very physically mature kids. Like Bailey, George, Livingston, Whitehead, Lively. Like, all these guys are, even Jarvis Walker, if you go down further, like, these guys are not, these are the guys with kids' bodies that you're waiting for them to develop. These guys can play. These guys have the college bodies now. Now, whether their mind's there and whether their skill set is there, we don't know. But this is a very physically mature class. And so I think a lot of these guys, the reason why they're high is for the physical maturity they have. The difference becomes who has the mind and the skill set.
The last thing,
George is a slight notch above everybody else for me.
The last thing with the 2022 class is that we also have to watch out for it in this new landscape. What if a kid like DJ Wagner says, "Look, man, the 2023 class is too easy. I'm clearly the number one guy. Let me move up to 2022." And maybe I do 2 years like Emoni Bates does if this Bates thing goes well. or maybe the rule changes by then. That's the thing about Emoni Bates is that the NBA could, at the stroke of a pen, make a deal with the Players Association and say guys can leave early.
And the rumor has been that the year has been the 2023 year.
Right. It's slowed down.
Yeah, it's slowed down, but that had been the rumor.
Motion, right. If the wheels stopped, they could get him back in motion. If they really wanted to. And maybe it doesn't for the Bates class. Maybe it does for Wagner. So, he's a kid that if he reclassified, would also very much be in that conversation.
Yeah, he absolutely has a case to be the number one guy. I mean, DJ. It's
the skill set. I saw Purvis Ellison, who I believe works with his AAU team, director or something like that. Obviously, Purvis Ellison, NBA,
right.
Levo legend, NBA grade, whatever. He said he compared him to Kyrie Irving in John Wall's body, and with John Wall's athleticism, and that's just like that's the ultimate point.
So he's his dad.
Yeah, I know, right?
I don't know, and I know a lot of that's young folks who didn't see his dad play. His dad may still be the best high school guard I've ever seen, even since today. I think now maybe Rose maybe passed him, but his dad scored 100 points in a high school game. All you need to know about how good DeJuan Wagner was, obviously the sickness he dealt with, kind of.
The reason I'm a Memphis fan.
Right, facts. Yeah, you were young.
DeJuan Wagner.
A young DeJuan Wagner fan. But yeah, his kid can go, man. Again, I agree, the athleticism, but then also to combine it with the skills, the handle.
Yeah. I was watching him a little bit at Peach Jam, and I will say, he right now, because he's young, he plays he does have that John Wall thing where he plays really fast, and so he's gonna have to slow down a little bit. But that's also.
But with guards, you always feel more comfortable having to slow them down than trying to speed them up, because the speed of the game sometimes can get ahead of guys who aren't ready for it, again, physically and mentally. Guys going 100 miles an hour, I can get him to say, "Hey, rein it in, young fella. Run the offense. You're going too fast. See the floor." That you can teach. Sometimes you just can't teach a guy to play faster or to even just adjust to the speed of the game being much more intense. That's something that sometimes is out of your control.
I also want to give a shout out real quick to a young man in the 2022 class who just got his first D1 offer, Hansel Emmanuel.
Yes, big shout out. Let me get the round of applause of it for him.
He has, obviously, if you may have seen him on social media, he's a terrific basketball terrific basketball player.
Yeah.
He has one arm, obviously. If you've seen the videos, he's still dominant at the high school level.
Yeah, he'll still smoke you with that one arm.
Yeah, exactly. He's played, all the best players on the circuits, and has competed at the highest level with those guys. Played in these all-star games, played in these showcase games, and has never been held back by it. But for whatever reason, didn't have any D1 offers. It was the most bizarre thing. And so he finally got his first D1 offer from the Tennessee State Tigers.
Shout out.
Nashville, Tennessee. Coach Penny Collins. HBCU, like you mentioned.
Yeah.
So, again, I'm just happy for Emmanuel because, the kid can play. It will be very interesting, obviously to see him on the college level. This is never something I've never seen before at this level. I haven't watched basketball as long as you. There are, plenty of people that watch longer than us, but I don't know if I've ever seen somebody play at the D1 level.
Yeah, not at this level. I've seen players with disabilities, play high school basketball and play.
Yeah,
but not. Again, this kid has been playing elite high school basketball and is aspiring to play college basketball at a high level. And he's really good. First of all, he's a marvel to watch. A guy playing with one arm, I think, and being able to actually be a really good player.
What I think I would imagine what held a lot of people back was this idea that he's going to be limited in what he can do. But there are ways in which I think it actually helps him that he's had to do more, and so he's almost more coordinated with what he has, and it's fascinating to watch, and I think at the next level, it'll be super exciting to see what happens. But
Emmanuel,
I think this is only the first to come too. I think once the first coach made the move, I think you'll see others say, look, because we're missing something here.
Yeah, and also, I think there are some coaches who may be apprehensive to, and this is unfortunate because, at the end of the day, he's a kid following his dream. But some people that may feel like, oh, well, there's a lot of attention to my program. Maybe I don't want all this attention. Now, I argue this is a amazing story. I don't know why you wouldn't want this kind of story with your program. But there are coaches, I guarantee you there are coaches who think that. But I think on the flip side,
I don't want to feel like I got to play him or whatnot.
Play him whatever nonsense, exactly. But then on the flip side, there will be coaches who maybe there's a hinge of opportunism there, and that's not great either. But at least it's helping this kid. They may say, "Oh, well, this is a great story, a great way to boost our program by giving this kid."
And
a
if
shot.
you're Tennessee State, let's be honest. I mean, look, getting Hershey Miller, masterpiece, was a great move for them. It's a great opportunity. But how many times is a All-American level guy or a guy playing in high school All-Star?
High school celebrity. He's one of the most
zero offers. Come to our school.
Yeah, why not? I mean, he is one of the most, if not the most well-known high school basketball player right now.
Yeah,
he might be the most. You're right. Yeah.
I mean, outside of the Mikey Williams level guys, but in terms of guys that have crossover appeal, to non-basketball fans that people will be rooting for.
Yeah, I mean, I saw a story. I don't know how many. I saw something. He has millions of followers on social media.
Yeah,
I mean, this. He's a celebrity. You know? So and an inspiration beyond just celebrity. I mean, that's the most important thing, obviously. He's an inspiration.
Look,
he's gonna be a hero to a lot of kids.
Let's keep it real. He's gonna be able to make a lot of money.
Yeah.
On the NIL in college basketball,
Definitely,
no matter where.
For sure.
And so
and he just seems like a great kid. Every time I hear him talk on an interview,
he doesn't. He doesn't use. He doesn't feel like his disability is limiting him in any way. He goes about his business as any normal player would, and competes. He doesn't feel sorry for himself in any way. So, again, super excited.
Yeah, man. Shout out to Emmanuel. Congrats to him. Whether it's Tennessee State, whether it's another school, I'm hoping we get to see him play D1 ball and see him continue to pursue his dream and not letting anything get in his way. If you ever need motivation to get to your dream, get up off your behind and go for it, that kid is walking inspiration every time he steps on the basketball court. So respect to Emmanuel. Shout out to everybody who checked out this month's edition of the Uncommitted podcast. I know it's been a minute. This is episode 9. We're closing it up. We're getting that double-digit number, Kendall. We've been starting this thing for a little while now. We're getting to 10 in the next episode, and we'll just keep going. So a lot of exciting stuff to come.
Not to cut you off, but I just want to say the one thing that we never mentioned with Memphis is also that they hired Larry Brown and Rasheed Wallace.
Yeah.
So footnote.
And to me, I think to me those guys, they sign on because they know what's coming.
Yeah, isn't that funny? Like, Larry Brown, I don't think takes his job if he doesn't think that they're decent there.
No, he knows he has opportunity. Larry Brown, this helps his legacy. This is another great opportunity. That man truly loves coaching. He would love to just actually be around these young men and coach these guys up. And Sheed continuing to grow his platform as a head coach, or grow his profile as a coach. He's been coaching and assistant coaching in the NBA and things like that, helping teams out. This helps him as well.
Isn't it funny how where is Emoni Bates from?
Michigan.
Where is Jalen Duren from?
Philly.
Where is Rasheed Wallace from?
Philly.
Where did he win a championship?
Michigan.
Where did Larry Brown coach his first NBA Finals?
In Philly.
Where did he win an NBA championship?
Michigan.
Isn't that funny? I don't know how that happened. What are the odds?
Who's to say how that all shook out? Huh. Very interesting how these games are played. But, man, that's a great way to close the show. Really enjoyed this conversation. Really enjoyed this podcast. Thank you guys for checking us out. Of course, we come with the Uncommitted about every month with the latest in high school basketball, recruiting, landscape, and college basketball as a whole. Really fun podcast. Every time we get to do it, I have a blast, and this was another great one. Of course, big news with Emoni Bates committing to Memphis. If you enjoyed this podcast, make sure, for one, you subscribe to our channel, New Generation Media, to get the video version of this podcast that comes out every month. Make sure you also subscribe to our regular podcast, our audio podcast. That can be found on the New Generation Podcast Network. That's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, Stitcher, and TuneIn. Thank you guys again for checking us out. For Kendall, I'm EJ. Take it easy, guys. Peace.